Thank you, Rich. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to our annual shareholder meeting in sunny Idaho. I'll give you a brief overview of the operation of the mill and outline the company's position at the end of its first 18 months of operation. As you can see, a lot of development has occurred since last year. First, we're in the process of expanding the mill by 2/3 of its former size. In preparation for a larger ball mill and related equipment, allowing an increase in production from 2.5 tons an hour to 7 to approximately 10 tons an hour, and a small closed circuit flotation system to recuperate the 65% of silver content currently discharged in our tailings, what's stored on our property. Cost of that will be approximately $1 million. We've added a clarifier tank and a belt press to the production line. This will allow the mill to discontinue the use of the outside settling ponds and result in an economy of roughly $2,000 to $3,000 a week in operating costs. We're building a smelting complex on our property, which you just viewed. A building underway encompasses the office area, the fully equipped assay lab, furnace room, mechanical room, secure cooling room, underground vault, comparable to a large bank vault. In the interim, we're carrying on with smelting operation of our concentrates and have provided for secure holding of the bullion dory off-site in a vaulted environment. Our assay lab occupies a building which is eventually going to be dedicated to geologist occupancy and work. The cost of this building is approximately $631,000. Number 4, we're increasing the size of the fenced-in area and reorganizing the employee and visitor traffic flow. We've run out of space inside our present fenced-in area, so we're increasing the fenced-in to give the mill room to stock an increased amount of raw ore and at the same time put a greater amount of space under security control. The cost of that would be approximately $100,000. Number 5, we have 24/7 security on site now. Security is being provided by Guardsmark, an international security company specializing in mines and other large manufacturing operations. We're hauling material from the dumps on the mountain to allow our plant to work until the next summer season. We'll be taking down roughly 20,000 tons of new material. We have filed also an extra 1,000+ acres of claims on the mountain and are surveying and filing more claims as our surveyors report on completion of their work. This will allow us to pinpoint the areas of concentration of precious metal on the ground through a program of surface drilling and underground drilling from the sinker tunnel. This effort will be under the direction of Mr. Roger Scammell, our director and eminent geologist, assisted by some resident geologists under our employ. We've also cleaned up and aired the sinker tunnel and have secured the entrance. After consultation and permitting, which by the way is an ongoing process, we've almost completed a work program outside and inside the sinker tunnel. Removing in the process all of the old wooden supports and railroad ties in the main portion of the tunnel, which is roughly 1.25 miles long, piping a drain for the full length of the tunnel, installing a forced airbag the full length of the tunnel, securing the hanging wall by rock bolting. On the outside of the tunnel, we've extended the tunnel entrance and reshaped the mountain face to ensure that weather and erosion will not affect the entrance to the tunnel in the future. The road to it has been and will be kept open year-round, and work inside will proceed uninterrupted for the next 12 months. We'll be laying in air pressure pipe and supplying compressed air to the rock face at the tunnel end to enable deep core drilling for our exploration program. And later, we will enter the exploitation phase inside the mountain. The cost of that is approximately $4.2 million. We've started work on emptying and exploring the shafts leading to the sinker tunnel from above. In order to continue work inside the mountain, we need to provide 2 things. Number 1, we need to open the shaft from the tunnel end to the outside to act as both a chimney and an emergency escape route should any blockage occur inside the tunnel. To accomplish this program, we've started efforts to locate and uncover the location of the golden chariot shaft. Indications so far point to a relatively easy solution, which will allow us to pump out this shaft and then connect it to the sinker tunnel over a distance of roughly 100 to 200 feet, if the available records from 100 years ago are correct. This will allow us natural ventilation and a secure escape route. Projected costs, and this is very iffy, projected costs are $150,000. As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, much has been accomplished, but much more remains to be done. We'll not go on over the specific numbers, since these are available to all on the SEC's website. Let me give you some figures that will enable you to get an insight into our operation from the beginning. When we started our operation on May 17, 2010, some 16 months ago, we had an unproven process that, although designed by some of the best engineering minds available to us, was unproven in its operation and delivery of precious metal. In December 2010, a batch of material was sent to an independent smelting house, and we received payment for gold and silver bullion contained in that shipment. Thus, the proof was established that we had gold and silver available. Now our focus was on bottom line profit and possible savings to be affected in the process. A number of factors needed correction, namely silver reclaiming, since our assays proved that we are currently extracting only 35% of the available silver in the ore. Water conservation, tonnage handled, smelting costs, land use, and finally, focus on the future. When we began this endeavor, gold prices were, as Rich mentioned, $625 a ton, and silver was very low also. So by processing all of the dumps on the mountain, roughly 500,000 tons, over a period of 22 years, a net profit of approximately $100 million could be achieved. Needless to say, at today's prices, the appeal is that much greater. A decision was made by the board of directors at the time to work that tonnage and to use the proceeds to finance an exploration of the mountain for the purpose of establishing the feasibility of underground mining of War Eagle Mountain at a profit. The plant was built, production began, resulting in certification of the fact that there is profitable extraction of precious metal in this location. Although our operation is small by today's standards, we are now poised to continue increasing production and returns so as to turn this operation into a highly rewarding and profitable venture for our shareholders. Management plans to increase production by a factor of 3 for a capitalization of about $1 million over the next year. We will also find and install a closed circuit flotation unit to allow us to recuperate silver sulfides. At present, we feed, on average, a planned 54 tons per day of material with a gold content of 2.948 grams per ton and 15.032 grams per ton of silver. Before you calculate the proposed financial results, let me warn you that a number of other factors influence our production of metals, of precious metals. Factors such as a recovery rate of 86% for gold and 35% for silver. Hourly operating factors of 65%, refinery cost of 4%, etc. In other words, the fact that we pull out whatever amount of ounces of gold and silver out of here does not mean that it's not influenced by other factors. There are averages to be obtained. Thus, it is assumed that on a 365-day period, gold at $1,800 an ounce and silver at $41 an ounce, a production for the past year of $1.7 million gold and $150,000 silver is estimated, and will only be confirmed when our contracted refinery receives shipment. Any production increase will of course result in an upward revision of these figures, and that is planned at a rate of 3-to-1 over the coming year. We presently use a water recycling process which has a loss factor of roughly 5 to 7%. which our own well can make up with ease, and also we have legal rights to water supply on the mountain. A special assay sheet showing the average value of the ore fed to the mill has been posted on our website and will be refreshed from time to time. And I ask that all referral to the value of the ore process be based on these figures. There's no sense in making up wishful figures. We're all guilty of that same fact. We all want to know, how much are we producing? Well, at any given moment, as right now, you hear the mill working. What is being fed into the mill is ore that contains that 2.984 or whatever that figure is in gold. That goes in the process, which does not mean that at this given moment there's 2.984 of gold coming out. It varies, but the average is that much, and somewhere in the coming hours or days, that much will come out of that particular batch. As you can see, our former evaluation of the overall value of the dumps on the mountain was at the time superficial. There was no other way. It was a quickie. It must be noted, however, that so far we've exploited only the poorest of all the dumps on the mountain. As a result of the unceasing efforts of our claims and property manager, Ms. Pascal Tutt, and our Idaho legal team, Holly Troxel, we are slowly positioning ourselves for an unfettered access to the richer dumps on the mountain. So where are we going in the future? Well, you've noticed the change on the board. A week ago, our Mr. David Bomarito asked us to accept his resignation for personal reasons. Although we were reluctant to let him go, his wishes were our wishes, and we accepted his resignation. As a result, we are presently looking for 2 directors. I have personal wishes in the directorship. Other directors have various wishes. We will do what is best for the corporation. In other words, we will hire the best and the brightest in the best fields for us. To go into underground mining, an available sum of $10 million is needed. Since our board decided to proceed with immediate exploration and development of the underground resources of War Eagle Mountain, a very favorable contract for our company was negotiated through the efforts of our investment banker, Delaney Equity Group, LLC, with Centurion Private Equity, LLC of Georgia. And we subsequently filed an S-1 to enable us to access the funds. Due to unforeseen reasons, unforeseen happenings in the trading platforms for our stock, we've been delayed in obtaining acceptance of our plan by the SEC. But filings and contracts are being realigned to satisfy the new requirements, and the situation should be resolved within the next month, allowing us to go ahead with our planned expansion and exploration. Our geologists are writing a document referred to as an instrument NI 43101, which instrument lists 3 types of minerals listed in a technical report. Number 1, mineral reserves, which means that they are valuable minerals and it is good for economic extraction. The second definition is mineral resources, means potentially valuable minerals which need more exploration to determine that the minerals are good for economic extraction. And number 3 is inferred resources, means the minerals that have not been tested, but is believed that there is more resources, but they have not been tested or evaluated. Now these will be standards used in our future filings. They will be standard used by our auditors, by our CFO, in estimating the value of the company. So in coming filings you will see items such as reserves, you will see these terms being used such as mineral reserves, mineral resources, and inferred resources. Now, our geologists are presently writing this NI 43101. This document will enable us to file for a listing on the Toronto Stock Exchange. where most of the world's mining concerns are traded, and will also allow us to list a confirmed and probable monetary value to our books, which again will result in a plus value for you, our shareholders. We will be hiring competent and qualified personnel in the coming year to handle both the increased production at our mill and to flesh out the different departments in our mining and milling circuits. In the interim, a small group of private North American investors led by our director, Mr. Alan Brightcruz, and our existing overseas investors were asked repeatedly for contribution to tide us over until we fly by our own financial means. I must thank every one of them for their unquestioned support, and I'm proud to show them the resulting accomplishments. In conclusion, let me say that we've worked hard and long, admittedly, with what I'm sure all is the efforts of all of our employees. But we assure you, on behalf of the board of directors and all the employees here, we assure you of our unflagging determination to accomplish our goal of having a vibrant, profitable gold mining company in the shortest period of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pierre. Can you hear me? Hello, Rich.
Now you can hear me.
Now, can you hear me now? Hello? Okay. We'll do questions and answers after, and then we'll be directed to any one of our directors or officers. And we're going to allow Mr. Roger Scammell, who's going to do his presentation to you guys, and we'll continue onward. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Since I'm the young kid on the block, or the new guy on the block, I just briefly explain my experience. I was educated in England, went to the University of London, and in 1970 went to Canada and spent about 23 years with various companies exploring for lead, zinc, gold, silver, and various other commodities. And about 20 years ago, I was offered they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They said, you're either laid off or go to Mexico. So 20 years ago I went to Mexico and I didn't come back for quite a while. In Mexico my primary focus was on polymetallics, but also on gold and silver. I left during the time I was there. I was involved in the discovery of 4 deposits, one of which I took from the initial exploration stage through production into development, and because the engineer quit, I ended up also helping to build the mill. So I've got a fairly good experience. Although I've got over 40 years experience, I have not worked before in Idaho, and I must admit that it's been a little frustrating dealing with the bureaucratic system we have here, particularly MSHOR and the BLM. As a consequence, I'm not really in the position that I would have liked to be. I would today love to be drilling up on that mountain, but it didn't happen because we couldn't get into the Sinker Tunnel. We had to shore it up and make sure it's secure, which is a very good thing to do, obviously. But it did slow us down. So in the next coming months, we're going to go back into the Sinker Tunnel, shore it up, as Pierre said, put in an airline, and we're going to start drilling from underground. Having said that, we've been pretty busy in this area, mainly consolidating our land position. We've gone from approximately 8 claims to, I think, about 50 or so, covering about 1,400 acres. When I joined the company early in January, we had, through Goldland Holdings, we had this amount of claims in the yellow, the blue, and the green. The grey are other properties that we're currently negotiating with the landowners on. As with the settlers that came in many years ago, the larger land position, or in this case, the more claims you own in a mining district, such as War Eagle Mountain, the greater chance of success, obviously. in addition, we wanted to protect ourselves. So during the summer, we haven't been sitting on backsides. We've basically covered this area with our claims. This is just the general area, the brown area. That's the claims that we've staked. There are some independent claims in there. We're not sure exactly where they are, but there will be a few little gaps. But for the most part, we have a good control of the mountain now, particularly the different trends, north-south here, north-south there, and these southeast ones over there. Since we're not located in an active area, mining area such as Nevada or Arizona, we had difficulty in attracting qualified engineers and geologists. Most of them are grey-haired like me, and although I consider myself qualified, I have great difficulty clambering over the mountain. I get out of breath pretty fast. However, I'm very excited. Recently, we have acquired a good team of geologists and engineers. And Rich Appling, who isn't here at the moment, who I consider a young man, but he does have a bit of grey hair, is a very experienced mining engineer, which will be an asset to us. More importantly, however, he has a considerable amount of experience dealing with MSHA and the BLM, and I'm sure it will facilitate us getting speedy approvals for the underground development and the drilling. One thing that Rich did say, though, and I would like to point out, was that he was very impressed on how the Silver Falcon staff have competed and complied with MSHA standards. And I'd like to take this opportunity to tell them they've done a good job. On the geological side, as Pierre mentioned, Rick Walker is going to help us out with the 43101. He's way at the back there, trying to hide from me. And again, he has a bit of grey hair as well.
Hey Rick, why don't you stand up? So.
Thank you, Rick. He has a tremendous amount of experience in the western states, especially this area and the Nevada area. In addition, we just hired Kyle Durrett. He's the guy in the blue shirt. He doesn't have any grey hair.
But he will.
He might.
He will, but he's sure.
I refer to him as a mountain goat, and this is not a derogatory term, but it's one that I really respect his abilities to climb over that mountain. So if you see someone moving across the mountain at a great speed, looking like a Tasmanian devil, well, that's our geologist. In addition, we have we also anticipate we'll be hiring another geologist at the end of October, and I think that will give us a very good basis on the geological and the engineering side. Pierre's already mentioned about the 43101, which Rick will be looking after. The exploration will be in two phases. One is within the Sinker Tunnel, and the other is on the surface of the War Eagle Mountain. Once we have acquired, had all our claims certified, we'll be moving towards developing drill targets on that. Kyle will be doing the geology for the time being, and hopefully he'll come up with some nice drill targets for us. As far as the Sinker Tunnel goes, the advantage of that is that we can work all year. The problem with the mountain is, come November, as many of you know, the passes get filled in with snow and it's impossible to work up there, and we can't get back there until next June or July. So as far as drilling on the surface, we will not be able to do that until next year. However, the Sinker Tunnel will be accessible to us, and as Pierre said, we're going to keep the road open, and we'll be drilling from underground. The main purpose, or the main target for drilling, will be this area here. We know that in these various mines, the Minnesota, the Golden Chariot, the Elmore, the Cumberland, they never run out of ore. They just run out of money for development, and the gold price was not very good at that time. Obviously now it's much better than it was. So what we're going to do from the sinker tunnel is to drill in this area, below the mine. If we try to do it from surface, we'd have to be drilling 2,000 or 3,000 foot holes in order to get down below the old workings. But from the sinker tunnel, we could probably accomplish the same thing with 500 to 1,000 foot holes. So that's the target for the sinker tunnel. On the mountain, there is a number of vein systems. I call this one the London Poor Man, and this one the Great Western Afterthought. These north-south veins tend to be rich in gold, but you've also got cross veins within that, and these tend to be silver rich, but still with gold. This is where the sinker tunnel is, and the idea of the sinker tunnel initially was to drift under the mountain about 2,000 feet below the surface and access the Cumberland and the Orofino vein. They succeeded in doing that, but again, there was they started in 1890 and they finished in, I think, about 1920?
2003.
No,
The last effort.
2003?
Yeah. Pushed the last.
But they didn't succeed in finishing it because again, they ran out of money, mainly because of the low gold price. So the focus for us for the next 2 months with Kyle is to map all this area. We know that there are a lot more structures than they show here. And I am sure that these southeast, northwest structures continue up through here. And when we were staking the claims, I asked the surveyor to pick up any tunnels, adits, pits, whatever he could find. And when it came back, it looked like something had come off a dot matrix printer because there were so many of them. And that's Kyle's job, is to try and find them all on the mountain. So I'm very excited about what we're doing. We're moving along very well. We've secured the financing for this. And I'd like to drill up on the mountain this year, but unfortunately the weather's going to stop us doing it. On a personal note, soon after I joined Silver Falcon, my wife became gravely ill, and she's recovering slowly, getting better, but personally I feel I have to spend more time with my wife, and unfortunately if I do that, I cannot commit enough time to Silver Falcon as the president of the company. So I talked to Pierre, and I decided that I would step down as the president. However, I fully intend to stay on as a director, and I fully intend to help Rick and Kyle and Rich Appling continue with this exploration program. So I will continue to put my input in, but I just can't give it much time as I'd like to. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. I'd like to thank Roger. I'd like to thank Roger for all that he's done for us so far. And we have agreed that he's going to do a lot more. Now, I'm not his wife. A man deserves, A, to take care of his family, second, to take care of his outside business interests. So Roger, as he stated, will remain with us, but in a diminished capacity. So thank you, Roger, for your understanding and your help. Now, that being said, I'd like to answer a few questions, possibly, and then we'll go on to the voting process, and then if you can think of any more questions, we'll be around. So, are there any questions?
Before the question and answer period, if you could stand up, say your name and where you're from, and then we'll answer the questions to our best ability. Thank you.
I'm Mike Kimball from the Denver area. I was just wondering about the time frame for the 4301, when that thing might be.
That is scheduled to be started. It's a process that is an ongoing process in the corporation, but it will be started, I understand, in January. Am I correct, Rick?
I didn't hear the question.
Question is, when are we starting the 43101 process?
It'll probably start in December.
In December. I'm
And it
correct.
takes approximately,
Oh, depending on how complete you want to fill it, it's sort of a history book that is based on officialdom. Let me give you a short little resume of why 43101. In Canada, we still have a lot of mining operations. And there was a famous mining operation called the Bre-X. And it turns out that the Bre-X was a scam on an untold scene, an untold size. And when it became public and there was a great loss of investor money, the Canadian government stepped in and mandated that from now on, if you want to say something about a mine and trade on the Canadian Toronto Stock Exchange, you had better have not only the opinion of a guy like me, a CEO or a CFO, you should have a professional's opinion. In other words, somebody with a private engineer or license that signs on the bottom line. In other words, you had to have a real great expanse of undertakings before you could declare that you had probable resources or maybe possible resources or whatever. So the 43101 was created as a template, and this is how you do it, and it involves a whole lot of geological study, and it's an ongoing process in the sense that the geologists are an ongoing process in the company discovering the extent and the value and the composition of the ores. So this will start, as Rick has said, this will start in December of this year and will be ongoing, and then we will apply, at least we plan to apply, to the TSX for a trading position on the Toronto Stock Exchange with the 43101 as our banking. That answer your question?
I understand it's an evolving process, but at some point in time it's published.
Oh, it will be, we will publish it as soon as the authorities will allow us to do so. In other words, there is a certain amount, you just can't say, okay, here's a 43101 and we'll add to it later. You've got to start somewhere, and then it's the short version, and then it goes on and on and on. So the short version, when will it be published? When do you estimate?
The goal is to have it put in the end of January.
At the end of January, there you go. So, pretty quick, and I hope that we can all live up to it, but we're going to do our damnedest. Yes, any other questions? Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I was just wondering, anybody on the board dumped any of their shares, or sold any shares that they
No.
received?
I can assure, here's the thing.
The question was, is there any inside trading going on that from the
Yeah.
directors and officers? And I don't want to overstep here, but I'm a U.S. Securities Exchange Commissioner. I'm a filing agent for this company, and they have to file any buys or sells within a 24-hour period. So there's been no selling going on.
None whatsoever.
None whatsoever.
No, that's, you can be assured.
Can I ask more questions later as?
Well, certainly, certainly. Yes, sir.
Al,
I
you,
have one.
Al, you has a question.
I have a question. My name is Valley from Arizona. I see a number of clients last year.
Yes.
Fantastic design done, management, board, direction, so forth. What you did last year, compared what you did 12 months here, fantastic. Great job.
Thank you.
Question to ask me here, that why a depth rise and down to here? How would you respond to that?
That is the $64,000 question. The simple question is more selling than buying. So that's a stupid answer. So here's what I think personally has happened. We've gone from a shareholder base of maybe 1,000 people to today's 5,000 people. That's a huge increase in the number of traders, or people who buy in. And for a number of reasons, some of these people buy in with expectation of an immense jump in, let's say, a month. And it doesn't happen and they dump it. They dump their position. Others get called on margins. We know the stock market hasn't been the brightest star in general this year. And a lot of people have gotten hurt on the stock market. So if you own shares and you get a margin call, you don't have any choice. As a matter of fact, most of the time you get a margin call telling you that the shares have been sold. So basically, that's what happened. Why are we at 8 cents? Your guess is as good as mine. We are a thriving company. We are well funded. We are, as you can see, in full operation, in full expansion, and yet we're at 8 cents. What can I tell you? Frankly, I'd be lying if I had the answer. But as a shareholder myself, and a substantial one, I'm asking the same question as you. Who in the world is selling all these shares? And the only thing I can see is what we call churning. In other words, somebody buys 1 million shares, sells 1 million shares, buys 1 million shares, and this goes on. This is a world that's been transformed through electronics. You know, before, to buy shares, to trade shares, you had to call a physical person. And you had to get an argument. And you would say, you sure? And you got enough money, and blah, blah, blah. And this would sort of regulate the market. Today, everybody can get on the internet and carry 20 trades in the space of the next 20 minutes. That's the way it is. So it has sort of injected anonymity into the market. And while we have days where I look at the screen and I say, what? We traded 3 million shares today? My God. And then the next day we trade 300,000 shares. Which is correct? Should we be trading 3 million shares or 300,000? Frankly, my evaluation of all of this is that we should be normally trading the 10-day average. And that's it. And should the price go up? Yeah. Because there would be more buying than selling. But then, it so far hasn't happened. It has happened, it's fluctuated up, it's fluctuated down. Prices, the share price to me, as an individual, is based on the value of the company. And the value of the company in a mining company is based on the reports of geologists, the reports of mining engineer, the reports of the corporation, all of the Qs and the K filings. We've been very assiduous in filing on time, filing proper numbers and everything else. And I fully expect the price to creep up. That is not only my wish, but I think it's what's going to happen. But that's a personal opinion.
What's the burn
Yes,
rate
sir.
per month?
Parson?
What's the burning rate per month?
He wants to know the burn rate.
The burn rate here per month, it's $4,100 a day for the mill. That's what it is.
$4,000 a day.
Right. So the month, it's a 30-day month, and 30 times 4,000. That's roughly what the burn rate is. Any other questions?
I'd like to just reiterate the stock price. I do assure the shareholders that we do everything we can in order to maintain visibility and bring new investors into the stock. As we have a little shy of 6,000 shareholders, so we've gone up almost 400%.
That much.
Yeah. So we're very busy. There is a macroeconomic fear in the marketplace. It's riddled with it. We are being victimized by macroeconomics that have really no justification on the fundamentals here on our operations. Going forward with our financial numbers coming out on our revenue and the continual events of bringing more visibility to the company, the stock price will rally. Without getting into buying and selling here, people buying at 8 cents who are investors, not traders, based on what we have going on, what you're seeing here, and what you will continue to see, in my opinion, you're getting a heck of a deal at the moment.
Yes, sir.
My name's Gary, I'm from San Jose. Sending the door bars to Dubai in November, why? You sell to go over the open market out of Dubai. What did the revenue shares going into
The question is, do we sell the dory bars to Abu Dhabi, to our refinery? Do we sell them on the open market? The answer is the contract allows us to do as we wish. First of all, the first step is that the refinery has to agree with us as to the gold, silver content of the bars. That's number one. Number two, we then have to express our wish to the refinery as to either refining and storing on our behalf, refining and selling on our behalf again, or converting into coins, or making pure bars, shipping them back to us. We have all the opportunities. We are in control until the actual transaction is completed. And obviously, we are going to be wanting revenue to show up at least in the first few years. So we're going to ask for spot selling. But again, spot selling on the day where spot sale is profitable to us. In other words, if the price of the gold has gone down $100 today, we're not going to give an order to sell today. We're going to get the order to sell whenever it's gone up again. Yes, sir.
If you could stand up and speak louder so people can hear your questions, it would be very helpful.
Robert Smeltzer, South Carolina. The deal with Centurion, you said we've refiled, we're looking at it, possibly being completed within a month. Is that still backup financing, or is that going to be necessary? Last year we talked about having backup, we still had enough to...
Right. The question is about the S1 and the deal with Centurion. Why are we going to continue with that? Well, the answer is to do the full exploration, for example, next year now on the surface drilling, to do inside the mountain drilling, to do the full reporting on the 43-101, to hire 2 more geologists and a mining engineer and a couple of miners and so on and so forth, will require substantial amounts of money. What we do not want to do is to rob Peter to pay Paul. So yes, we will use the S1 or other forms of investment as we deem proper at the time, but we will require additional monies to carry on development of the company. The mill itself can do it. In other words, this mill, let's say that it produces, for the sake of argument, $1 million a year, and you need $5 million, you've got the option. You can wait 5 years and use the $5 million to do the development, or you can go and make an arrangement to get the $5 million today, based on the fact that you are successfully producing, and then develop the mountain 5 years ahead of time, and thus greater revenue. So that's the process that we intend to follow, yes.
Just a clarification, the S1 has not been filed yet, and then after it's filed, it goes through a review process at the exchange, and based on that, they will give us the okay to effectuate the fund if we deem to use it.
Correct. Anybody else?
Ben Furtloss versus New Mexico. I'm very sorry to hear about the loss of our president. Our constant prayers go out to you and your wife. Who is going to be the head of geology, and where do we stand in getting a new president?
There it is.
Okay, he's going to continue as the head of geology?
He will continue as the head of geology, director, head of geology. Of course, on the ground, the work that you would have done personally here on the ground is going to have to be done by somebody else. So we will have to hire another geologist to make up for the loss of Roger's efforts here on the property.
When can we expect an announcement on that?
It'll be done next week. Yes, Ron.
What that includes or more, what it doesn't include.
Well, the cost of $4,000 that I'm talking about per day is the cost of the mill. The mill costs include the fuel, maintenance, salaries for employees, taxes, a number of items, telephones and whatnot, the truck that serves the mill, and so on and so forth. The rest of the expenses for the company, for example, the administration of the office in the head office in Bradenton is certainly not covered in the cost of the mill. The land, the property here belongs to Silver Falcon Mining. It's not Diamond Creek Mill, so it's not covered in the cost of the land, or not accounted for in the cost of running the mill. So the mill cost is, when we open up in the morning and people go in and turn the switches on, which never happens because we're on 24/7, but if you take a given morning and say, okay, we declare this the opening hour, and from that on, that day will cost you $4,000 in expenses. Yes, sir.
Bill Shearer, Tyler, Idaho. When they asked the burn rate of 4,000, you just stated that's only the mill cost. You've got all this other, what's your true burn rate?
Well, the true burn rate for the company is into our K and Qs. I don't remember the exact figures. I'm sorry? 30,000 a month? Is that inclusive of the mill or on top of the mill? Okay, so it's 30,000 a month for the balance of the corporation. Any other questions? Yes, sir?
I asked a question yesterday, and I'd just like to follow up on it. Is in order to have a viable company, you got to have a viable mine.
Right.
That means that we got to get in core drilling.
Yep.
And we got to get the mine into production.
Yep.
If we don't do either one of them, the tailings will never amount to anything in mine.
They'll amount to $100 million, but over 22 years,
but
and
they still
you and I will be going probably. So.
It still won't be a mine. And my question is, have you got a schedule put out for procedure on how long it's going to take you to core drill? At what point in core drilling will you decide to open the mine, and when you project this to come about?
Okay, this is a whole lot of steps resumed into one question. The question is, if you want to open a mine, and we know that we're not interested basically unless we have a mine, then what's the schedule? Well, there are many steps. First, we know, and I say this in a broad statement, I personally, let me put it this way, know that there's gold and silver in appreciable quantities in that mountain. That mountain is, if you figure a piece of chocolate, a round piece of mound of chocolate, 10 miles wide and 8,500 feet high. That's a humongous piece of land. And somewhere in there, they've taken out, on the top, on the surface, they've taken out 100 years ago, at $25 an ounce, they've taken out $270 million. Then. Not in today's dollars, then dollars. So, yeah, there is a lot of gold and silver. But, where is it? And that's where Rick, Roger, Kyle, all these people come into effect. These people are going to tell us, okay, here you are, and we've discovered through our drilling program, 18 months long, we've discovered that over there there's a pot of gold, and over there is another pot of gold, and these values correspond, so we can assume that in the between is a sheet containing that much gold per ounce of mineral, and so on and so forth. And where is it? It has these coordinates. Then the mining engineer will look at the chart and say, how do I get there? Well, he will decide on, we drill a tunnel at such and such an angle with such and such an azimuth, and we'll get to that gold. And that's how we're going to take it out. But then the process is self-generating. The geologists don't just quit and say, okay, we've done our job, we're going home, bye folks. No, that's not how it works. Geologist keeps on working and says, oh, you know what? I just found out this sheet of gold, it breaks like this, but it goes down there. And you know what? Down there is even better. So now the mining engineer says, oh my God, now I got to drill another tunnel. So he goes on to another direction. We hire more employees and increase the milling rate and increase the size of the mine and increase the values of the money and everything else. That's how it works for a mine like that. Your question is, how long? In 18 months, I will gladly answer what we're going to do and where we're going to do it. But until such time, I have no idea, folks. I've hired the experts that have ideas, and we'll let them work and produce. Yes, sir.